Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through tough times. Now, as you know, you can hear this podcast, The Road to Rediscovery, anywhere you get your shows. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rate and review. Otherwise, if you listen on any other platform, we still invite you to give us some feedback. Just shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. And we'll give you a shout out in a future episode. We are truly, 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 truly grateful for your listenership. All right, my special guest left her 9-to-5 job as a marketing coordinator to chase her dream of becoming a professional makeup artist in the fashion industry. Along her journey, she suffered depression and anxiety without even knowing it, and then the pandemic hit. This ushered in a pivoting time for her journey into her true calling and gift as an energy healer and medium. Today, she specializes in emotional and ancestral trauma healing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Regard Tang to the show. Regard, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Aubrey. I'm so excited for today's interview.
Oh, likewise. We are so excited to have you here, as you can hear. So let's go ahead and just dive in, Regard. Early in your journey, as you were pursuing your dream in fashion makeup, you mentioned that you fell into depression and anxiety without knowing. What helped you realize that you were depressed and anxious? Were there telltale signs, or did you confide in someone? If you can give us a glimpse into that chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like majority people now is more about mental health
Hmm.
after pandemic,
Hmm.
but also because of a culture thing. I'm full Chinese. I born and raised in Hong Kong.
Hmm.
Um, but Asian, we don't really talk about mental health and
Hmm.
we don't express a lot of emotions. We're just like, well, whatever it is, everything is fine. But it's
Mm.
like a lot of time that is not everything is fine. Like, have you seen that meme that like there's a dog holding a coffee cup while there's like a fire at the
Yes.
background? Yeah,
Yes.
that is a very famous like meme, right? So
Yeah.
basically, the majority Asian is
Hmm.
pretty much just like that. Even though everything,
Really?
oh yeah, it present everything is like, oh, it's just so glamorous, everything is okay, everything is fine. No one really talk about like, oh, I'm actually going through this tough time.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that because of like a lot of the time is because of the culture and the family.
Yes.
And my family, my parents, they don't really talk about emotions. They don't really know what emotions is.
Yes.
I have to discover myself on like, oh, actually, I'm going through a tough time. Like, of course, that like I knew that I was going through a tough time, and why I
Hmm.
didn't know that I was going through a depression because I didn't grew up with having that kind of like knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course that like I guess that in your like 20s or even early 30s, some people that they like, okay, let me Google it what depressions looks like.
Right. Right.
But for me, I didn't have that kind of like knowledge or
Yeah.
like awakening, right?
Yeah.
So when I was going through the depressions, I just know that like I felt so sick inside.
Yeah.
I was consistently having this like now I know, right? Now I know that
Yeah.
I was going through a storm. I was going through like dark clouds. I was going
Yeah.
through like rainy days. When I get up, I'm like, ugh, I'm like, what the heck that I'm doing in this lifetime? Like
Right.
I have like no clue, right?
Right. Right.
And I was just my life was pretty miserable, I
Oh
would
my.
say. Yeah,
Really?
because like I went through a different depressions in my life, and
Mhm.
if we have time, maybe we can dive deep in it a little bit, because
Mhm.
I I left my parents when I was 11 from Hong
Mm.
Kong to the United States pretty much by myself. Like they
Really?
moved, yeah, they moved to the States with me, but my dad, he stayed for like 2, 3 weeks. My mom stayed for like 3 months, right?
Right.
So from 11 till 18, when they finally moved to the state, I'm pretty already like for my mindset, my way of
Right.
thinking, like
Yeah.
how I react, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that now when I think back, that I think that I actually go through a lot of internal turbulence without
Yes.
even knowing it, because my parents is not around me. I'm just
Right.
like I'm just consistently experiencing anger,
Yes.
resentment,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
hate.
Mhm.
Those
Mhm.
are the strong emotions that I had, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So when I went through the depressions in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, well, it's just another episode. Now I can say episode, but like back then I'm just like, oh, it's just another way for me to like experience. It's normal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just like sweep everything under the rug until years later, until
Mhm.
that I was like working in fashion for, I would say, 6 years or so.
Okay.
um I consistently, because that I want to present myself the way that I wanted to present as a makeup artist before I go into a job, so I always do my
Yes.
makeup.
Yes.
And when I was doing my makeup, every single morning before the job, I was looking at myself. I was like, I hate you. Like I was looking at the mirror. I was like, I
Oh
really
my
hated you.
goodness.
And I
Really?
was like, I don't know what are you doing. Like I was literally feeling like crying inside every
Oh
morning.
my.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
I got to the point that I was like, I can't have this kind of like feelings anymore.
Mhm.
And I was talking to one of my best friends, and
Mhm.
she was like, why don't you try therapy? And she was like, I've been in therapy for a year, and it's really helped me
Yeah. Yeah.
to have a lot of clarity and
Mhm.
understanding myself more. And I was
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
well, I'm really good at talking to people. Why
Mhm.
not? Just give it a
Right.
shot. And out of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
So I went there. I didn't have any expectations. I just went there. I'm like, whatever. I
Yeah.
was like sitting there. Within the first 5 minutes, I was crying.
Oh my
I
goodness.
was like
Yeah. Yeah.
bawling my eyes out. I was like,
Right.
what the heck is wrong with me? What is going on? I hate this. I hate that. I hate
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
At that moment, I knew I was at the edge. It's almost falling off the cliff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was basically bottled up for so many years
Mhm.
without any guidance, without any like acknowledgement, like, hey,
Yeah.
you experienced something that you shouldn't experience for this long.
And then the floodgates just opened.
Yeah, like once you open, you're never able to like close.
Right. No, it's gotta all come out, right? At that point, I mean, the gates are open, so here it comes, and it's years and years and years of built up anger, built up, just, regret, not regret,
Yeah,
but, resentment.
resentment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. My goodness. That's one thing you mentioned, Regard, that sounds, absolutely fascinating to me, and it's totally opposite of my initial impression and thoughts when it comes to um, you know places like China, Japan, India, and Asia, and those sorts of places. Those places is the mindset, right? As
Mm.
far as you know, don't express emotion, don't express that you're sad, don't express your feelings, and that sort of thing. Mental health, isn't talked about or expressed or discussed, or at least, for years, it's not traditionally. I find that fascinating because for so long, and I appreciate you clarifying this for me and the listeners. For so long, I kind of related mental health to Eastern medicine, okay, versus Western medicine. Things that are practiced in Eastern medicine really, at least in my mind and my experience, helps and supports the um, my mental state.
Mm,
Things like meditation, mindful thinking, it helps my mental state, it helps my mental health, and it was more practiced and prevalent in Eastern medicine than, say, in Western medicine. And it sounds like, from how you're describing it, they're actually kind of mutually exclusive, to a degree. It's practiced, you know, in the East, but there's this emotional side as far as expressing yourself that is, not commonly practiced. Is that accurate?
yeah, so
Okay.
I think that is really depends on where, right?
Okay.
Meditations is more, I would say now, of course, that is wide open for a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
it's open
cities,
all over
right?
the world.
But
Yeah.
I'm talking about 40 years ago,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So and meditations, I would say that is more known in India,
Okay.
or in the silent is more in Japan.
I see.
But I was, as I mentioned it, I was from Hong
Hong
Kong, and
Kong.
then
Mhm.
Hong Kong is such as like a very upbeat city. It's very
Yes.
like New York, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I of course that unless that the family that they have the knowledge and resources, then they're
Mhm.
like, hey, this is we've been practicing. Maybe you should do it too.
Yeah.
But because of my dad's side and my mom's side, none
Mhm.
of them they are doing it, even to
Oh,
this day.
to this day.
To this day, like I'm the
Wow.
only person
Yeah.
on both ends,
Mhm.
as I acknowledge this.
Yeah.
Um, I'm the one who's doing meditations. Like, of course, that my dad's side have some Christians.
Yes, yes.
My mom's side that they don't believe on anything, right? They
Right.
are like the free spirits.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, like they just don't have that kind of resources, I would say.
Okay.
So I have to kind of figure out on my own. And
Sure.
if you ask, I'm pretty sure majority Asians they're like, oh yeah, therapy. We don't really talk about therapy.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in the States, it's more known. But if you're
Yeah.
actually going to China
Right.
and ask for therapy, people will look at you like, oh, are you crazy? Are you having
Well,
like a mental meltdown? Like, do
yeah.
you have to go to like mental state? Like, like
That's the
hospital.
conclusion they draw.
They
Yeah.
just jump.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't have
That
that much of like mental hygienes, I would say.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, how did you come to the spiritual sense, or the acknowledgement of your true calling, your gift in what you're doing now with this type of healing and the medium work that you do?
Yeah, so I never planned on being a medium. I
Hmm.
never thought of I have a gift, right? So
Okay.
when I was start healing myself, I really spent a lot of time sit with myself and understand who I am.
Hmm.
Of course, therapy was still is a very big part of healing process for me.
Yes. Yes.
And I wouldn't say that I was a very spiritual person. I mean,
Okay.
I believe in reincarnation. I believe in tarot readings. I believe
Okay.
in readings since I was young.
Okay.
And of course that like people is like, oh, this is too woo woo. Like there's no proof around
Yeah.
it. And I always very feel drawn to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But because of my mental health, it became a self-development and self-improvement.
I
I
see.
went into like a rabbit hole on YouTube, on um, podcasts, on books, like understand like, okay, how can I
Hmm.
get not over the emotions, but understand more my emotions, because I have a lot of emotions within myself.
Yes.
And of
Yes.
course, I didn't know that now of my emotions is actually helping people to reconnect with their own emotions, right? So one thing led to another, because of I knew it was time for me to step outside of the fashion.
Hmm.
It wasn't really
Hmm.
helping my mental health, and I got
Hmm.
to the point
Hmm.
I was like, I need to do something else.
Mm.
And I just stumbled on coaching. One day I was like Googling how to become a coach, and I was like, okay, that sounds appealing, maybe I should
Yeah.
become a coach. It was just like that, basically.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
I went to school for it, and I
Hmm.
got my certifications, and I
Hmm.
thought that was my true calling, because I always wants to help people one way or
Yes.
another, right?
Yes.
And so after I became a coach during the pandemic, I was struggling quite a lot, because I was like, it is quite hard to get a client that who is willing to commit it
Right.
3 months with you.
Yes.
And a lot of people that they want to change, but they don't want to spend time to change within them.
Yes.
But like, I'm like, I
You gotta do
always
the work.
yeah, I always tell my clients, I do not have a magic wand. I can
Right.
guide you, but I cannot I cannot leave your life, right?
Yeah. It's a
So
process.
exactly. So when I was understanding, doing all the inner work, being a coach, start understand how to communicate with people, understand how powerful words can be. It can be a
Yes.
sword, right? And it can
Yes.
be a healing.
That's
So
right.
it can be a very extreme. So um December 2021, I know that I got to the point that I was like really put in the work healing myself,
Yeah.
and of course that moving in with my parents during the pandemic is helping me to heal my own family wound. And
Yes.
it helps me to understand that, like, okay, I'm coming back and moving back with them when I turn 40.
Right.
And it's a gift, because at first I'm like, I don't understand why I have to live with my parents. Like, I
Yeah.
just hate this. Like, universe is actually have the whole plan for you, and you just don't see it just yet, right?
Right. Right.
And because of me that healing my own family wound is one thing led to another. And when I was at a spiritual event on December 2021, my gift is just open like that at that event. So
Mm.
um
Okay.
so at that time, the mentor, she was my first day mentor, and she was she has a power to do energy work on people.
Yes.
And one of my friends, she invited me to this event. I was just being curious. I'm like, okay, say less. I showed up. And then I show up. And when I was there, I was like, oh my God, like I was having this headache, which is I cannot not experience, like express why. Like I
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
explain like why. Like when
Yeah.
she when she was working on some of the clients, my head was like pounding,
Hmm.
and my voice is changed to 85-year-old very raspy man, and I know that it sounds um unexplainable, and I still cannot explain to this day, and it's
Yeah.
pretty bizarre.
Hmm.
But I was basically awakening that day, and I was start able to hear, I was start
Yeah.
able to seeing, my
Yeah.
body was vibrating inside out, and I
Hmm.
was like, oh my God, something is happening within me,
Yeah.
something is changing. And
Uh-huh.
I felt like this gate that has been locked for so long,
Hmm.
it just open. The lock is just open, and then it's just wide open. And then one thing led to the other. My first mentor, she was just like basically guiding me
Yeah.
on like, okay, these are the clients, what can you do? And I was
Yeah.
kind of like exploring. And
Yeah.
then later on, I was like, okay, I realized that a lot of ancestral things comes up. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is something that I'm actually doing and helping them to reconnect and
Yes.
understanding the emotions behind from the
Yes.
family.
Yes. Using your gift, right?
Exactly.
And your mentor helped you how in learning how to navigate and use your gift to help them, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
Wow.
definitely helping the clients, but she wasn't sure what was my gift was, and I didn't
Right.
even know what was my gift of. I just
Okay.
know that I'm able to feel people's emotion and I'm able to cry for my clients without they actually crying. So
That's amazing.
I'm helping them to lift the emotions and heaviness off their chest. And
I
every
got
time
you.
after I cry, they'll be
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I felt like that rock on my chest for so many years has been lifted just by you crying.
Right. Ah, I see. I see. And this comes to you quite naturally. And
Mhm.
is this that dynamic electromagnetic field that you're referring to in terms of what you feel that's the energy, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
energy from my clients, and of course that when I start developing my gift, I just
Yes.
don't know, and a lot of times I just start crying.
You
And I'm
receive
like,
it.
yeah, like I receive
Okay.
their heaviness. I
Yeah.
understand that, like, oh my
Uh-huh.
God, like you've been carrying this emotions for so many years, and I was just crying. And of
Yeah.
course, after the gate was open, I start
Yes.
able to hear and downloading informations from their spirits and their higher self and
Hmm.
telling me that, hey, you have to deliver this message to the client so they understand what's the behind the scene and what was in the past from the family that the client's not even knowing.
I got you. Okay, so in what you're receiving, I want to I want us to break this down
Mhm.
so the listeners can understand.
Absolutely.
When it comes to something that the listeners may be struggling with a loved one and a loss of a loved one, which I have a question for you about that in a little bit. But I want them to clearly understand, the type of help that you can provide them, in your gift and receiving their energy, using your gift to detect certain things that they may not even be aware of, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And so when that trauma, whatever the trauma or emotional struggle is identified or determined in how you're receiving, their energy.
Mhm.
Um, like you mentioned, there are things that you're receiving saying that you must tell them about this event or this suffering or this, thing. Um, Along with that, are there tools and methods that you work with the client in processing and navigating what you share with them? And I think that's all part of the healing. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, so I know that it is a lot to unpack in here,
Hmm.
so we
Hmm.
can go step by step, right?
Sure.
So let's say a client comes to me, and what I offer is I specialize able to bring the client through
Hmm.
a portal. So
Hmm.
when I'm in the portal, I'm connected to their ancestors
Yes.
and their spirit guides and their higher self, right?
Right.
And so when I'm in that area, I'm start able to download that is the mother side wants to come in to talk or the father side wants to come in to talk.
Okay.
And let's say that the mother side wants to come in to talk, right? And usually whatever that size that it comes in to talk at that 1 hour session,
Okay.
is because of it needs to address first. Okay.
Okay.
And when it happens, let's say that, oh yeah, I don't have a good relationship with my mom, and because of she triggered me, and I always feel neglect, right?
Mhm,
For
mhm.
instance. And it happens like so many clients to so many clients.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let me dive into it a little bit better. But do you know that your grandmother or your great grandmother was abused physically or emotionally or mentally?
Mhm.
And because that she doesn't know how to love herself, and it's become that her a lot of struggles, then she doesn't know how to love the daughter, and then love the mom, and then you
Ah,
just never get the love from your mom. It's because of the grandmother or
I
great
see.
grandmother
Yeah,
got abused,
I
right?
see. Yeah.
Or sometimes it's just more into that. I don't want to use the word, but
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so or the dad is like the same way, like,
Sure.
oh, because of he feels like I consistently got competitions from my brother,
Right,
and it
right.
just got into that. It is a lot of things that
Mhm.
they, as a client, that they do not know, but I'm able to
Right.
bring in the informations
Yes,
for
yes.
them to understand, and having the compassionate.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you going deeper into that and clarifying that because you look deeper into their lineage and generations
Yeah.
to help reveal, why, say, they were treated that way by their mother or why they were treated that way by their father.
Yeah.
And it could be how their grandmother or their great grandmother or great grandfather, was treated in their upbringing. And you have a gateway to that, it sounds like. And that's totally fascinating, Regard, because my initial thing that I was thinking about, okay, is the trauma um, for that client that you're working with and
Yeah.
their direct parent, their direct
Mm,
relative, right?
yeah.
And how they may be estranged. If
Mhm.
they're estranged, then they're not on speaking terms. They haven't seen
Mm.
each other in months, and so forth. And then there's those times where that parent may pass away.
Mhm.
And if they pass away, then that your client may have, I don't know, guilt or
Yes.
regret for not being able to express how they feel or make amends with them
Ooh,
before passing,
yeah.
and I was thinking it was limited to that as far as your gift into helping them heal, but it goes further than that, it sounds like, because you have the ability to look further back in lineage.
Mhm. Yeah, so the
Mm,
most deep so far that I was able to get into was, 6 generations up.
that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep. Yeah.
Need to like okay, let me write it down as great 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 great
Mm, 6th
grandparents.
grade, yeah. Wow, that is amazing, and this approach helps your clients find peace,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so they understand more, is like, oh crap, like I don't even know that, like
Yeah,
my I know that my mom or my dad, that they just have their emotions shut down.
yeah,
Like they don't know how to express. They don't know how
right,
to express love. But I don't
okay,
even know that, like, oh, because that they experience it like up from the generations, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
this is the reason why that we call generations trauma, and it's
right.
a real thing, right? And
Yes, it is.
generation trauma, ancestral trauma is the same thing. It's just different
Yeah,
ways to call it, right?
right, right.
And like they if they know the behind the scene, they're like, "Oh, I've been carrying that, like, their emotions without I know that that I'm carrying their emotions." Just
Yeah,
like I've been carrying my dad's side of the worry, and I didn't even know until someone looked into it,
yeah.
of my own trauma, because
Mm,
I have a gift for helping other people, and
yes,
I'm sure that you heard the saying, doctor that they can help others, but they
yeah.
can't help themselves.
Themselves, yes, I've heard that phrase.
So I think that because
Hmm.
for us as a human, we have a lot of emotions attached. We have a lot of
Yes.
attached outcomes,
Yes.
and we have expectations. So we just cannot see it clearly. But
Right.
when you're having someone to able to look into it, is fascinating. And like a lot of
Hmm.
people, a lot of my clients like, oh, that makes sense. And the thing is, to me, I usually tell my clients, because I do consultations, and I'm
Yes.
like, just give me 3 sentences.
Yes.
What do you want to work on? And
Okay.
usually when I get into the session, if we both decided to move forward, the
Hmm.
first 5-10 minutes, I'll give them the story, like give them the behind the scene. Okay, this is the dynamic between
Hmm.
you and your family. This
Hmm.
is the dynamic between you, sorry, the father and the mother.
Right.
Is it that? And
Right.
then they're like, they are speechless. They're like, oh my God, like I never told you about it.
And you picked up on it. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I'm
Yeah.
talking to their family. I'm talking to
Yes.
their lineage. So
Absolutely. It's fascinating. It truly is very intriguing for sure, Regard. And so when 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 we reach the point in working with your client where they're on a path towards healing,
Mhm.
you've revealed to them, what that trauma was. It may have been unknown by them, where the source of that trauma came from. It may be 3, 4, 5 generations back in their lineage.
Yeah.
And you also work with them to process through that trauma so they can begin the healing.
Yeah.
What types of discoveries has your clients um, expressed to you now that here's what I'm getting at that point, do they feel like there's a huge weight lifted off of their shoulders? Do
Yeah.
they realize the potential for just improved personal growth and the potential for new opportunities in their lives to have an enhanced life, not just with themselves, but with how they interact with their family, be a better mother, be a better wife, be a better husband, be a better father, maybe take a new hobby? I mean, what sort of like potentials and possibilities has your clients expressed to you that they can now do? Has that weight been lifted off their shoulders?
Yeah, so I do have some repeat clients, of course,
Hmm.
and then they will come back. They will be like, "Oh my God!" Like within one sessions, like I
Hmm.
just have this weight that has been waiting on me for so long. Because the
Yes.
thing is, I don't only give them the behind the scenes story,
Right.
and I actually talk to their higher self and their spirit guides is what kind of homework that they can take with them so they
Okay.
can do it.
Yes.
Because I strongly believe I can, me as a guy, I can only do so much for you. I can
That's
only need
true.
so much for you, right?
Hmm.
But because that we as a human that we ingrain a
Yes.
lot of like emotions, feelings, and
Hmm.
also ingraining a lot of mindset. And
Yes.
those exercise, let's say this is for instance, someone is they have like their closed throat chakra, like
Yep.
their chakra is closed from their throat.
Yep.
Means that they are people pleaser.
Yep.
They don't know how to voice themselves. They
Yes.
always trying to put other people's first, but they are like mad at themselves, and then they have
Hmm.
a lot of anger issue.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those usually the spirits will come in and sit and tell me that, okay, this is the exercise that they need to do. And usually everyone's is different. There's no one size fit all, right?
Right. Right. That's
So
right.
it can be singing, it can
Yep.
be humming, it can be
Hmm.
screaming,
Yeah.
it can be saying that like I am releasing this energy and I
Hmm.
allow that, or
Hmm.
whatever the homework is going to be.
Yes.
And basically, the spirit will give me this prescription
Hmm.
to give it to the client. You have to take it every single day or 3 times out of a week, whatever it is, for X amount of time,
Yeah.
and come back and report it back to me and let me know how it goes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and usually if they follow through, and of course, again, healing is hard work. I never say that it's easy. right? If
Right.
someone
Never
tell
easy.
you that, oh yeah, I can do everything for you, it's such a lie.
Yes, it's a lie. Yeah, yeah, it's never easy. It's a process, and it goes up and down, peaks and valleys, ebbs and
Exactly.
flows. Yeah.
Exactly. So people will be like, my clients will be like coming back as like, oh my God, I follow through and I actually able to break through
Yes.
the way that I never able to break through in the past, no
Yes.
matter accepting themselves, no matter that they are able to speak up to them, to
Mhm.
other people.
Mhm.
One client recently, it just did one session with me, and she followed through, and she texted me back was saying that, oh my God, I realized that when I'm able to speak up, the world is not ending.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
able to allowing myself to speak is such as like a way of freeing myself, and I've been in a
Yes.
cage for so long, and I'm
Yes.
like, I just love to hear those success stories because
Uh-huh.
like, again, I'm the guy, but you have to do the work.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's gotta be a liberating feeling for them, right? Because it's something they, for so long, thought they couldn't do. They thought
Yeah,
they were restricted. They thought they had limitations,
yes,
and through what you've guided them through, they realize that, "Hey, you know, I can do this." And
yeah,
there's this huge weight lifted off, and along with that huge weight, they start to realize the possibilities
yeah.
of, how they can have an enhanced life, which is fantastic. Regard, I got to ask you this question. I think I know the answer now that we've been talking about this electromagnetic field, this dynamic electromagnetic field,
Yeah.
and what you've been feeling and receiving with their energy. But I just wanted to ask you this.
Mhm.
Now, we've all heard and used the expression of having a vibe, right? A vibrational frequency
Yes.
where we pick up on someone's vibe, and there may be a stranger that you meet in a coffee shop or in a library or in a bookstore, where you start talking with them, and you just kind of and it's subconsciously in a lot of cases, right? You just pick up on their vibrational frequency, their vibe, and you start a very engaging dialogue, a very great conversation, and they're picking up on yours as well. um, when we're talking about the energy that you feel, is it that vibrational frequency, or is that something different? Are they mutually different between vibrational frequency and the dynamic electromagnetic field?
Yeah, so I would break it down into two things first, right?
Okay.
So first thing when clients comes to me,
Hmm.
um, is it's not it's not a vibration. Like I
Okay.
because that
Okay.
to me, I can literally hear and
Yeah.
I can see visions.
Yes.
So it's more than just a frequency. Like, oh, am I
Okay.
matching with this person? Is this
Hmm.
object going to serve my purpose, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's that is one thing. And
Okay.
another thing that, like, let's say if someone meets another person, let me for example, like
Yes.
I'm able to tell that I'm able to get along because I have the intuition.
Yes.
That is more the intuitions is more for serving for your frequency. But
Yes.
my work, yes, is part of it, intuition,
Okay.
but it's more than just frequency and vibrations.
I understand. I understand. Thank you for clarifying that and breaking that down. These are two things. Yours goes deeper. Yeah, and it has to go deeper to do the work that you're doing. It sounds like, for sure. So, can you describe? I guess there's something that you help or work with clients on called past life discovery.
Mhm.
Can you explain that and describe that for the listeners?
Yeah, so I don't focus on that just as of now because
Okay.
I want to focus on the family,
Okay.
but past life has showed up.
Okay.
within my clients, not once, not two times, multiple times.
Multiple
it's,
times.
it's just because that like sometimes it's deeper than just the family. If
Yes.
that
Yes.
showed up, it means that needs to address, and is for them. Because a lot of time that your past life show up, you just have a confusions and not
Yes.
understanding why I'm experiencing this experience.
Right.
Sometimes, of course, majority time is from
Sure.
the family, but
Hmm.
also there's times that it's because that your past life, it happens that like whatever events that it experienced,
Yes.
it have those strong emotions. And
Hmm.
I believe in reincarnations, right?
Yes.
So when when the soul that is finished that lifetime and it didn't finish that lesson,
Yeah.
this lifetime we have to finish the lessons.
I
And
see.
those emotions that it just brings to you as well,
Yeah.
it pretty much is programmed within you.
I see. I
and
see.
and so for you to learn and continue whatever that you didn't finish from the
Right.
last past life game, because I
Yeah.
feel like we're just in a matrix and we're just playing a game.
Right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so past life, it show up with the
Okay.
emotions, but that
Hmm.
is not something that I focus on as of now.
Understood. Not a focus point as of now in that
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
But it has happened, but your
yeah,
focus is on the family.
yeah.
Yes, understood. Fantastic. Regard, you spoke a few minutes ago about, in working with your clients, and they come to that revelation, right, that they
Mm.
can speak up, and they can and they do have a voice, right, which is fantastic. And as you said that, it reminded me of something you mentioned in your blog, right?
Mhm.
um, I loved how you talked about using humor, right, to take the edge off, but you want to be direct and firm when it comes to setting boundaries with
Yeah.
loved ones who may be emotionally abusive. And here's what I love about it, okay? Because it sounds like in what you advise, I think there were two or three things in that blog. In what you advise, that in essence, to me at least, helps to prevent ongoing generational or ancestry trauma.
No.
Is that so, or am I
Yes.
thinking differently?
So I think that when it comes to setting boundaries, right?
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people, of course, that they don't know how to set boundaries, because that the
Yeah.
parents, they don't even know how to set boundaries with each
Mhm, mhm.
other. But to me, because that I'm my personality, I speak fluent sarcasm.
Yeah.
That is my
Right.
love language, right? And
Yes,
to me,
yes.
how do I set boundaries within my family? You
Mhm.
have to really communicate it. And
Yes.
me and my dad, that we always butt head in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, this is what I want. This like, and then we just blow up.
Right,
So
right.
I realized that sometimes that when you add into a little sarcasm in there, you're
Yeah.
just lighting up the mood,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're direct, but yet that you're like, okay, I'm getting to the point, instead of like, oh, I think that you blah 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 doing wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that that is one of the way that I show my clients is
Mhm.
an efficient way. And also usually my spirit, like when I start downloading informations, they
Yes.
are pretty humorous. They don't
Ah,
they
okay.
they
Yeah.
they are very direct, but they
Uh-huh.
like I would start smiling or I would start laughing. I'm like, sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I know that this is very serious.
Right, right.
However, this is what they are showing me. It's just because
Mhm.
that healing, it can be very heavy.
Yes.
And a session, 50 minutes, an hour, it can be a lot to unpack.
Oh, of
And
course.
for my clients, it can start getting short circuit
Yeah.
because it's too much information.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
usually bring in the humors to my clients. So they're like, okay, this is heavy, but at least that I can laugh with you.
Right.
because I'm start laughing and they're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, yeah. It breaks things up a little bit and allows for, a lighter space,
Yeah.
and which can keep them from short circuiting too, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because it is a lot of information. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you sharing and clarifying that as well, Regard. So how can the listeners learn more about you? How can they follow you? How can they just hear some great examples of the awesome work that you're doing, and maybe even schedule a Zoom consultation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer a 15 minutes
Hmm.
free consultations because I want to understand, am I a right fit for them?
Yes.
Sometimes that people comes like, I'm like, well, maybe this is not your, it's not like they will show me that are they ready or not. And
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
want to force things.
Right.
So that 15 minutes is their giving them an opportunity to understand
Hmm.
exactly what I do and how can I help them,
Gotcha.
and giving me an opportunity to understand what is their story and
Hmm.
are we a right fit, right? So I
Hmm.
offered that for 15 minutes free consultations.
Hmm.
And how can they find me? They can find me on TikTok. They can find me on Instagram at
Hmm.
Regarding Energy. And my website is www.regardingenergy.com. So if you type in
Okay.
regarding energy, things
Yeah.
pop up.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, it
And of
does.
course, my name, Regard
Yeah.
Tang,
Yeah.
things will pop up.
No, that makes sense. And yes, www.regardenergy
Regarding energy. Yeah.
regarding energy,
Yes.
www.regardingenergy.com.
Correct.
That is the website, along with social handles and other information that we will put in the episode show notes so that the listeners can contact Regard Tang and learn more about her work. Just listen to some testimonials, maybe even set up a Zoom consultation, and make sure and see and confirm that there's an alignment there, right? That there's a fit for exploring further and deeper into what your emotional traumas may be from generations and how to heal from them, right? And that's what Regard does. And there may be things that the listeners may be struggling through, and they think it's immediately from their parent and how they were raised, but it goes deeper than that. And Regard has the gift. Regard has the ability to to download that information from that space, from that time, to share and reveal with you where it is, and then move forward on how to heal. So, Regard, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show, sharing your insights and the work that you do, and also the clarifications that you've given for us when it comes to vibrational frequency versus the electromagnetic field for the dynamics of the body. Again, Regard, thank you for coming on the show. I hope we stay in touch, and it was great having you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just want to let the listener knows that it's not alone to on the healing journey, and all kinds of like heavy emotions is not, you don't have to be carrying if it's time to put it down, it's time to understand, and it's time to having that clarifications in order for you to move forward.
100%. Stop carrying that burden. You don't have to carry this burden. You have so much of your life ahead of you. And wouldn't it feel better if you had a lighter load, right? Regard can help you with that. Regard, thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And hey, look, if you have a friend, a loved one, a colleague, a neighbor, um, just someone who doesn't seem to be themselves, maybe they're going through dark days of despair, not quite sure where to turn or who to turn to, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them, because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know two things. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadsrediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.